संस्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। So as you have seen, we'll be continuing our discussion on Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga, that is, karma performed as yoga. All of us perform karma every second. Even breathing is a karma, but it doesn't lead to any higher achievement, any higher spiritual growth if it is not done properly as yoga. So Karma Yoga teaches us how to transform our day-to-day activities into a spiritual practice. So we've already had a few discussions. Today we will discuss what Swami Vivekananda said about the life of the householder and the monk. So we know that all of us have different aptitudes, mental and physical capacity. All of us are placed in different circumstances. So many of us cannot look beyond our narrow circle and think that the way we look upon the world is the only correct way, and what we do is the only correct thing to do. We are the standard of the universe. But this is not the correct way to think. Depending upon where we are and what we are, our ideals are bound to differ. And our success or failure is also to be judged accordingly. For example, just to give a concrete example, suppose someone is earning a sum of, say, 10,000 rupees a month. So his success or failure, how is to be determined? If he has come from a very humble background, like to give a concrete example, when I was in India, the carpenter who used to work for us in the ashrama, his son got a job in Microsoft. Yeah. So others are also getting jobs in Microsoft, maybe those who are very well placed already, those who come from very rich families. But the success which this boy achieved, because he comes from a very ordinary background, is much more. So our success and failure is also to be judged according to the circumstances we are placed in. So explaining this, Swamiji gives some very important guidelines. 3 of them we will see here, which relate to our topic today. The first thing he says that every man should take up his own ideal and endeavor to accomplish it. This is a surer way of progress than taking up other people's ideals which he can never hope to accomplish. For instance, we take a child and at once give him the task of walking 20 miles. Either the child dies or 1 in 1,000 crawls the 20 miles to reach the end exhausted and half dead. That is like what we generally try to do with the world. All the men and women in any society are not of the same mind, capacity, or of the same power to do things. So they must have different ideals. To give another concrete example, one of our very great Swamis, Swami Achalananda, he was a disciple of Swami Vivekananda and he was the vice president of the order. So what happened was, he was doing tapasya at one place, or he was working in an ashrama. I don't remember the exact circumstances, but what happened was Swami Turiyananda, he got the company of Swami Turiyananda. So Turiyananda was, he was the renunciation incarnate. So he inspired that monk greatly to do tapasya and all that. So what Achalanandji did was he plunged headlong, because the disciples of Ramakrishna are like were the epitome. Ordinary man cannot even think of doing what they did. But he tried to plunge headlong, and what happened was, because of the severe austerities he practiced, his health broke down completely. Once he said, those days, especially when you are doing austerities and all, you cannot. There are no mirrors and all, so you can't even see what your condition of the body is. So once what happened, he had gone to a riverside. Then he said, when I saw my reflection, I could not recognize myself. His health completely broke down. So what happened was he tried to emulate what Turiyananji did, but ordinary people cannot do that. So this is what Swamiji says here. Every man should have his own ideal. If he tries to follow ideal which is beyond him, he cannot succeed. This is the first point. Second point is, and we have no right to sneer at any ideal, not to look down upon those who are not doing what we are doing. Let everyone do the best he can for realizing his own ideal, not realizing others' ideal, which he can never hope to do. This is the second point. Third point is, nor is it right that I should be judged by your standard or you by mine. The apple tree should not be judged by the standard of the oak, nor the oak by the standard of the apple. To judge the apple tree, you must take the apple standard, and for the oak, its own standard. So many people here we see, in every country, of course, not only here, that some people go into bad habits. Many times in young age they adopt some. We know all that, so no need to mention. But what Swamiji says here is that we should not look down upon even those people, because we don't know what we might have done if we had been placed in their circumstances. So these 3 points are very important. First of all, each one of us has to take up his own ideal, not go for blind imitation. Secondly, don't look down upon anybody, his ideal. Thirdly, every man should be judged by his standard, not by the standard of any other person in the world, because each of us has had to pass through different circumstances in life. Next, he says is that unity in variety is the plan of creation. So even though we differ in almost everything, each human being is different, still behind us there is unity. He says, again I quote, however much men and women may vary individually, there is unity in the background. The different individual characters and classes of men and women are natural variations in creation. It has to be. You are not like me, I am not like you. That has to be. That is the plan of creation. Since each of us is different, we ought not to judge anybody by the same standard or put the same ideal before them. So, when at Baranagar Mutt, after Sri Ramakrishna passed away, so all the disciples also did very tremendous austerities. So Swami Vivekananda once saw that they were going beyond their capacity because they had seen Sri Ramakrishna. So he said, can any of us become Sri Ramakrishna? Never. So what happens is we have to admit this variety of creation. We cannot go beyond our own limitations at once. Slowly, of course, we can, not at once. So the same ideal cannot be put in front of everybody. No monk can be told to emulate Swami Vivekananda. It is not possible. No householder can be told to emulate Nag Masha. It is not possible for everybody. So what is to be done? He says our duty is to encourage everyone in his struggle to live up to his own highest ideal. The ideal of the householder can never be same as the monk. But the monk should be encouraged to live up to his own ideal, and the householder should be encouraged to live up to his own ideal. So everyone should be encouraged to live up to their own ideals, and we should strive at the same time to make the ideal as near as possible to the truth. This should not be lost sight of. If someone says, my ideal is to buy a new car every day and visit a new restaurant every day, that is no ideal at all. Because that ideal has nothing to do with the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that our goal of life is to realize our own true nature. There is no other goal. And to get rid of all our suffering in that way. There is no other way to get rid of suffering. Impossible. That is the truth. So the life, the ideal should be as near as truth as possible for each of us. This is very important. So in the name of following our own ideal, if we say that we can do whatever we like, that is no ideal at all. That is a aimless life. So this should never be lost sight of. Now, Swami Vivekananda says, although each of us is different, but in the Hindu scriptures, the duties of life have been broadly classified in 4 compartments. There are 4 stages of life, what is called the ashramas. So all of us know that first is the brahmacharya ashrama, then when one is a student. Second is the grihastha ashrama, when one is a householder. Third is the vanaprastha ashrama, when one becomes old, one retires from the world. He is supposed to lead a simple life. And fourth is what is called the sannyasa ashrama, that is monastic life. So it is not that one has to go through all the 3 stages before one takes up sannyasa. No. It is given in the scriptures that right from the student life also, one can take up sannyasa if one so desires and if one is fit. So Swami Vivekananda says the life of every individual according to the scriptures has its own peculiar duties apart from what belongs in common to universal humanity. Universal humanity has some duty. Common duties as a citizen, as a member of the family, as a member of the society, we all have duties. But each stage of life, each ashrama, in addition to these duties, has a particular duty. First stage, all of us, our duty is to gain knowledge, study. In the second stage, householder stage, our duty is separate, what we will see now. In the third stage, vanaprastha, the duties are separate, and same for the monastic life. So Swami Vivekananda describes this. The Hindu begins life as a student. Then he marries and becomes a householder. In old age, he retires. And lastly, he gives up the world and becomes a monk. To each of these stages of life, certain duties are attached. No one of these stages is intrinsically superior to another. No. Each has its own importance. The life of the married man is quite as great as that of the monk who has devoted himself to spiritual growth. But we should remember, if he really does his duty, not otherwise. Each is great if they perform their duties. This should be remembered. So those duties we will see. Then he says, the scavenger in the street is as great and glorious as the king on his throne. Take the king of his throne, make him do the work of the scavenger, and see how he fares. Take up the scavenger and see how he will rule. So it is useless to say that a man who gives up the world is greater than a man who lives in the world. Sometimes it is much more difficult to live in the world and worship God than to give it up and lead a comparatively freer life. So now he says the four stages of life in India in later times, they have been reduced to, broadly speaking, two stages. Two stages of what? We all know. Householder and monk. And of course, the student stage is there. So what does a householder do? A householder marries and carries on his duties as a citizen. And the duty of the monk is to devote all his energies to only one thing, to preach and worship God only. He is not supposed to do any other thing. So Swami Vivekananda says, I shall read to you a few passages from the Mahanirvana Tantra, which treats of the subject, and you will see that it is a very difficult task for a man to be a householder and perform all his duties perfectly. It is extremely difficult. So he now enumerates those duties of the householder. First, the householder should be devoted to God, and the knowledge of God should be his goal of life also. Yet he must work constantly, perform all his duties. But he must give up the fruits of his actions to God. So this is the primary thing. It is not that the goal of the monk and the householder are different. The goal of both are different, same. But how they approach the goal is different. So Swami Vivekananda next says, we had seen that he says, we have to give the fruits of our actions to God. Then he says regarding this, it is the most difficult thing in this world to work and not care for the result. It is extremely difficult. Then he gives some details, but we will go to the next duty, what he says about the duties of the householder. Second is, knowing that mother and father are the visible representatives of God, the householder always, by all means, must please them. If the mother is pleased and the father, God is pleased with that man. That child is really a good child who never speaks harsh words to his parents. Next, regarding the duties towards parents, he says, before parents, one must not utter jokes, must not show restlessness, must not show anger or temper. Before mother or father, a child must bow down low and stand up in their presence, and must not take a seat until they order him to sit. If the householder has food and drink and clothes without first seeing that his mother and father are fed, his children are fed, his wife is fed, he is committing a sin. Then next he says, even so is his duty to his wife. No man should scold his wife, and he must always maintain her as if she were his own mother. And even when he is in the greatest difficulties and trouble, he must not show anger to his wife. The following are the householder's duties towards his children. A child should be lovingly reared up till his 4th year. He should be educated till he is 16. When he is 20 years of age, he should be employed in some work. He should then be treated affectionately by his father as his equal. Exactly in the same manner, the daughter should be brought up and should be educated with the greatest care. And when she marries, the father ought to give her jewels and wealth. Then the duty of the man is towards his brothers and sisters and towards the children of his brothers and sisters if they are poor, and towards his other relatives, his friends and his servants. Then, by stages, first duties towards the parents, then to the wife and child, then to the other relatives. Then, of course, comes his duties towards the people of the village and the poor and anyone who comes for him to help. Having sufficient means, if the householder does not care to give to his relatives and to the poor, know him to be only a brute, not a human being. If someone is deserving, we have the means, lot of means to help that person who is a relative, and he deserves it. If we know that he will gamble it away, or naturally that is different. But a deserving people, if one has the means, one should always help. Then, excessive attachment for food, clothes, and the tending of the body and dressing of the hair should be avoided. The householder must be pure in heart and clean in body, and always active and ready for work. Then, second, to his enemies, means not enemies in the sense that personal enemies. Enemies means those who are oppressing him in some way. So, towards him, he must be a hero. To them, he must resist. Those who are taking undue advantage, sometimes, it happens. That is the duty of the householder, to resist evil. He must not sit down in a corner and weep and talk of non-resistance. If he does not show himself to be a hero to his enemies, he has not done his duties. Enemies again. Enemies means those who are harming him in some way. But to his friends and relatives, he must be as gentle as a lamb, always loving and kind. And another, I'm skipping some because it is very long. You can read in the Karma Yoga. I'm only reading what are the very important ones. Then a man must not say he is poor or that he is wealthy. He must not brag about his health. Don't go to parties and tell, I did a European cruise, I purchased a Tesla, not very expensive. Don't brag. People are shamelessly bragging. He should not, first of all, spend in such a way that he has to brag. Let him keep his own counsel. That is his religious duty. This is not mere worldly wisdom. If he does not do so, he may be held to be immoral. Then Swamiji says, the householder is the basis, the prop of the whole society. He is the principal earner. He is supporting the whole society. The student doesn't earn. The monk doesn't earn. The vanaprastha, retired person, does not earn. The householder is the prop of the society. Everybody depends upon him. The poor, the weak, the children and the women who do not work, all depend upon the householder. He is so important. So there must be certain duties that he has to perform. And these duties must make him feel strong to perform them, and not make him think that he is doing things beneath his ideal, not at all. Therefore, if he has done something weak or he has made some mistake, he must not say so in public. Such self-exposure is not only uncalled for, but also unnerves that person and makes him unfit for the performance of his legitimate duties. Then he must struggle hard to acquire these things. Firstly, knowledge. Secondly, wealth. A householder has to struggle. He must work hard to earn wealth. It is his duty, Swami Vivekananda says. A householder who does not struggle to get wealth is immoral. If he is lazy, he does not want to do any work, content to lead an idle life, he is immoral. Because why? That wealth is not for going to European cruises. It is, he says, because upon him depend hundreds. He is supporting the whole society. That's why he needs wealth. And of course, to maintain himself, that is no doubt. So, if he becomes rich, hundreds of others will be supported. That is why he has to earn wealth. Going after wealth in such a case is not bad because that wealth is for distribution. The householder is the center of life and society. It is a worship for him to acquire and spend wealth nobly. Then, of course, some other minor points are there. That is, those are true for everybody. The householder must speak the truth, speak gently, and using words which people like, which will do good to others. Nor should he talk of the business of other men. Don't go on gossiping what he has done, what he has not done. That is what happens in parties. I get information from all of you. I don't attend, but I know he has done so much. He has done such a bad thing that fellow did. You know how rich he has got in few months. All this nonsense. This has to be stopped. So this is one part of the doctrine of Karma Yoga activity, the duty of the householder. And there is a passage in the same Tantra, Swami Vivekananda says, which says, if a householder dies in battle, fighting for his country or his religion, he comes to the same goal as the yogi does by meditation. So here what do we see? Swami Vivekananda says, here we see that the duty of one is not the duty of another. At the same time, it is not that the duty of one is lower than the other also. If it is performed correctly, it is as important, if not more. Each has its own place. And according to the circumstances in which we are placed, we must perform our duties. So here the quotation from the Mahanirvan Tantra, and Swami Vivekananda quoting that ends. So the gist of what Swami Vivekananda tells here is, if a man retires from the world to worship God, he gives up the world. He must not think that those who live in the world and work for the good of the world are not worshipping God. They are also worshipping God. But they must be working for the good of all. This has to be remembered. So, neither must those who live in the world with wife and children, etc., neither must they think that those who give up the world are low vagabonds. They don't do anything, just roam about from place to place. So both are bad because we are demeaning each other. If both lead their life according to the ideals mentioned in the scriptures, both are equally great. So the answer to the question, who is great, is very simple. Swami Vivekananda says, each is great in his own place. And he says, to illustrate this, I will tell you a story. Swami Vivekananda says. So it is a very interesting story. Most of you may know this. It is very long, so we will just see. If we don't have time, we will just shorten it. So he begins the story. A certain king, whoever came to him, monk or any great person, any great householder, used to ask, who is greater? One who gives up the world and becomes a monk, or who lives in the world and performs his duties as a householder? Who is greater among them? So many wise men sought to solve the problem, either this way or that way. But whenever someone came and gave the solution, either way, the king used to ask him, give me a proof. Why should I believe you? But how can you give the proof that who is greater, householder or monk? So most of them could not give any proof. So the question remained unresolved. Then at last came a young monk, a young sannyasi, and the king also inquired of him the same question. So he gave this answer, what we have seen, each, O king, is equally great in his own place. So the king said, okay, prove it to me. So monk said, okay, I'll prove it to you. But you must first come and live as I do for a few days. Then I will be able to prove it to you. The king said, okay. King gave up the responsibilities of his governing and went away with the monk. So they started wandering, passed through many kingdoms until they came to another kingdom where the king was not recognized. So what was happening there? A great ceremony was going on. The drums and music they all heard. So they went, people were assembled in gala dresses, and a proclamation was being made. What? Proclamation was that a Swayamvara was going to be held. Vara means accepting somebody, or Vara also means husband. So Swayam means oneself, choosing one's husband. So it was an old custom in India. Each princess had a certain idea of the sort of husband she wanted. Some would want the most handsome man, some would want the most knowledgeable man, some would want the bravest man. So what happened was they had a big event in which all the neighboring kings or princes would be called, and the princess who was to wed them, she would go around the whole all the kings were sitting. So when she would come near a king with the garland, there was a crier. He would announce, he is king so and so, he has done this, he has done that. Then she would go to another person. As soon as she liked somebody, she would put the garland, and then it was understood that the princess wanted to marry that person. So this was the custom. So now the princess of that country to which our monk and king had come was going to have one of these interesting ceremonies. She was one of the most beautiful princesses in the world, and her husband would be ruler of the kingdom after her father's death. So a lot was to be gained for the king who was selected. Now the idea of the princess was to marry the most handsome man, but she could not find the right one to please her. Many times before also, with that princess, this Swayamvara had been held, but it had come to nothing. So this meeting was the most splendid of all. More kings than ever had come to be selected by the princess. So it started. The princess came to one throne, then again the next one, again the next one. But she could not find someone to her liking. So everyone thought that this meeting will also be a failure. But then, just then, a young monk entered the assembly. He had not come naturally, he had not come to be selected, just to watch. So he was as handsome as if the sun had come down to the earth and stood in one corner of the assembly watching what was going on. So the throne with the princess came near him. And as soon as the princess saw that monk, she stopped there and threw the garland over him. The young monk was flabbergasted. What is this? What nonsense is this? I am a monk. What is marriage to me? So the king of that country thought that perhaps this monk was poor and dared not marry the princess. Who could refuse such a princess and all this kingdom and all? So he came to the monk and said, "Don't worry, with my daughter goes half my kingdom and the full kingdom after my death." So he again put the garland in that king on the neck of the sannyasi. But the sannyasi was unflinching. He threw it off once more. He said, "Nonsense. I cannot marry. I don't want to marry. I'm a monk." And walked quickly away from the assembly, not caring for all that power, all that beauty, anything. But problem was that princess did not want to marry anyone else now. So to her father, she said, "I must marry this man or I shall die." So she went after the monk to bring him back. So now what is happening? The monk has gone. The princess is going after him. And our monk and our king, they are, so monk said, "King, now let us follow this pair. Let's see what happens." So they walked after them, but naturally at a good distance so that they could not see. So that monk came to a forest, to one who was going away from that princess, and entered into that forest. The princess also entered after him, but the monk knew the forest very well. So he took some turns and he disappeared. That princess could not find him. So now what to do? They are stuck in the middle of the forest, the princess and her father. So after trying for a long time to find the monk, princess sat down under a tree and began to weep. How to come out of the forest now? So then our king and our monk came to help them. They said, "Don't worry, we will show you the way out of the forest, but it is too dark for us to find the way now. Here is a big tree, let us rest under it, and then in the morning we will go out." So now he has shown one thing. Our monk has shown the king what is true renunciation, what is the ideal of the monk. Now he will show what is the ideal of the householder. So they sat under a tree. A little bird and his wife and their three little ones lived on that tree under which all of these people were sitting. The little bird looked down upon and saw the three people under the tree, four people actually, because king, the monk, then that king and his daughter. So he looked down and said to his wife, "My dear, what shall we do? Here are some guests. It is winter. They must be feeling cold. We have no fire." So what did the bird do? He flew away, got a bit of burning firewood in his beak, and dropped it before the guests, helping them. So they saw, they added some fuel, and at least they had a fire. But the little bird was not satisfied. He said again to his wife, "My dear, what shall we do? There is nothing to give these people to eat, and they are hungry. We are householders. It is our duty to feed anyone who comes to the house." So what to do? That bird said, "We have nothing, so I shall give them my body." He plunged into the fire so that they could eat him and satisfy their hunger. The guests, naturally, the princess saw them falling and tried to stop that bird, but he was too quick for them. So the little bird's wife saw what her husband had done, and she said, "There are three persons and only one little bird for them to eat. It is not enough. I am his wife. It is my duty as a wife not to let my husband's efforts go in vain. Let them have my body also." Then she too jumped into the fire and was burnt to death. Then what happened? Then the three baby birds, when they saw what was done, and there was still not enough food for the three guests, they said, "Our parents have done what they could, and still it is not enough. It is our duty to carry on the work of our parents. So let our bodies go also." And all of them dashed down into the fire and gave their lives to serve their guests. So here weakness, when Swami Vivekananda says that if a monk fears the ridicule of the society, that they may blame him for not doing his duties towards his parents, and if the householder also is scared of the ridicule of some people for what he is doing, that should not be. So in Buddha's language, there is not even a single person in the world who is not praised and not blamed. Even the most evil person in the world will have his followers. We know, and in the scriptures also we see Duryodhana, even he had his followers. So remembering this, one should go about one's duty without caring for the opinions of those who are just fond of giving opinions. That is the thing. One way cannot be suitable for all people. It is not that one way is superior or inferior. So when we become monks also, family members come, they say, "Don't people practice religion at home? Why do you have to become a monk only? Don't we practice religion? So why can't you do it at home?" You can do it, but it may not be the right path for me. It may be the right path for you. So problem is when we try to, as Swami Vivekananda said in the beginning, when we try to impose our own ideal upon others, then the problem will come. All the gossiping and criticizing which goes on in all these big parties which you people are attending has only one source. We are trying to put our own ideals on top, imposing them on others. If this one thing is remembered, then all types of criticism will stop forever. Because we do not know, even if somebody has done a great thing, imitation of Christ, there is one line. You may have heard of that book. Swami Vivekananda was very fond of that book. So, especially for monastics, that is why it is written that to a monk it is written that even if you see your brother, means a brother monk, doing a very bad thing which a monk should not do, don't criticize him, don't look down upon him, because you do not know whether you will not also do the same thing if placed in his circumstances. We never know. So these are the two things to remember. That first of all, no man should be judged by the standard of others. No person should think that his own ideal is correct only. Each person has his own ideal. And whatever one's station in life is, if A, B, C, D, four stations in life, they all follow their ideal perfectly, then they are as good as the other person. There is no superior or inferior. So, this is the conclusion of Swami Vivekananda, and all the great teachers also teach the same thing. That we all have to reach God. The goal is the same. There is no two ways about it. Because when he mentions the duties of the householder, the first thing Swami Vivekananda says that the householder's life should be a search for God. There is no two ways about this. But how he approaches God is difficult from how a monk approaches God. And both are equally good paths. So neither can be said to be superior or inferior. If followed correctly, all the paths will lead to the same ideal. This is a very long chapter, but because of lack of time, we have skipped some portions. Those who are interested can please read the whole chapter. In Karma Yoga, you will see the chapter is named Each is Great in His Own Place. That is the name of that. So let us stop here today. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Parivastu.